Stand by to fall in, Polk County. This is today's veteran. Hello and welcome, and on behalf of everyone at the Polk County Office of Veteran Services, thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Tim Kirkhart, and on this installment of Today's Veteran, we talk about April being National Volunteer Month in the United States. This month is dedicated to honoring all the volunteers in our communities, as well as encouraging volunteerism throughout the month. In honor of this, we have Kathy Williams, Chief of Voluntary Services at James A. Haley Veterans Hospital and Clinics. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, maybe how you got to be where you are right now as the volunteer coordinator.
Okay. I'm currently the Chief of Voluntary Service, but this is a very new job for me. However, I've been at the VA for 27 years. I started my career with the VA as a recreation therapist and moved up to be a supervisor, and 26 years in, I decided to change careers and step over into the voluntary service realm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So where all have you been, during your service? Has it all been in Tampa?
It's all been at Haley. Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing this then?
Voluntary service, 4 months.
Okay.
So this is fairly new.
Okay.
I sat in the chair a couple years back, temporarily for in-between positions. So it's new, but it's not. It's kind of old. Okay.
I would say that most people don't know that James A. Haley has volunteers. How can you distinguish a volunteer from an employee, a paid employee?
Distinguish them? We give them uniforms, they have badges, but a lot of times you wouldn't know the difference between a person that was volunteering or a paid employee. We have them doing a lot of the same task.
Okay.
They're not to replace the employee, they're to supplement the employee.
Okay. About how many volunteers do you have?
Currently we have about 815 active volunteers, and they're producing, last year alone, we had just under 100,000 volunteer hours, and we track that. And that equals about 50 full-time employees with the VA.
And how many hours can they get, or how many hours do you need them?
We ask that any volunteer that signs up and goes through the onboarding process that they dedicate at least 100 hours for the year with us, just to equal the effort to go through the onboarding process.
Do you have volunteers that may have retired from working at the hospital? How would that work?
We do. We have a large volunteer base that are recently retired veterans from the military, as well as recently retired, veteran employees. One of the current person that's helping me right now volunteered. She retired in December and came to volunteer in January. So wow. She's still giving back. She wasn't quite ready to hang her hat up.
What kind of things do the volunteers do there?
Well, we have several jobs. We call them job descriptions or positions. Everything from tram drivers to greeters to concierges to people to just assist the veterans as companions, to sit with the veteran, to talk to the veterans. We have people in the linen room, we have people in dietary, we have them in the canteen service, assisting with trays. It's a multitude of jobs. We now have a large population of volunteers. We just put on 80 new volunteers for our whole health program, which is fairly new to the VA in Tampa.
It's interesting you mentioned the tram drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have any training driving the tram? Because I've ridden the tram.
Uh-oh.
And some hit those bumps
The speed
pretty
bumps,
hard.
yeah. We do provide them with a video about safe driving, and they have to take a couple online courses. But if you have a valid driver's license and insurance, then we'll put you behind the wheel to get the veterans to their appointments on time.
I wouldn't mind doing that if I lived over there.
Yeah,
but
it's a little
yeah.
warm. It can
Yeah.
get warm in the summer.
Yeah, but they're usually the initial person that the veteran or their family see coming out of the parking lot or wherever.
Exactly. They are the face of the VA, because they are the first encounter with the veteran. So whether that's a positive or a negative experience, it a lot of times comes from our volunteers. They're the first ones to greet them, to say good morning, and talk about the weather, and how was your day? I can tell that you're uncomfortable today, or are you lost? The tram drivers are very important, especially at Haley, since we have so many buildings. That's normally the first thing out of the parking lot. The visitor's mouth is, where do I go?
Right.
I have this letter in my hand, now where do I go?
Right. If I was thinking about being a volunteer, which I just mentioned, if I was over there, I might do that. What do I need to know? What would I need to know if I wanted to be a volunteer?
There's a process involved. It's pretty simple process. It's just a little time consuming. You need to do a TB time test because of the tuberculosis exposures, and we do a background check, fingerprinting, and then we do an orientation, and we interview you and determine what your skill set is and where we can put you, and we would love to have your smiling face.
How long would the process be?
Pretty much about 3 weeks. It's a couple of visits, the TB test, to come back in 48 hours to have it read, and then to do the onboarding for fingerprintings. It takes 72 hours to get that back, and then we place you in an orientation class where you learn privacy and HIPAA, and after that training, then you're sent to whatever your job duty is, whether it's driving tram, and then there's an additional, for tram drivers, there's an additional orientation to the trams and how to charge them, and the schedule and all of that.
If I wanted to be a volunteer, but I only wanted to do a certain thing, would that be like on my application, or how would that work?
Yes, it is. We have the application itself has a special interest area, and we want to know what your skill set is. We want to know, do you have arts and crafts in your background? Were you a public speaker? Do you have computer skills that we can, use? Telephone skills. All of that is, and again, it's a generational thing. So with the younger population, their skill set is different than, let's say, my age. So.
Right. We talked off the air about the phone situation at Haley. Mm-hmm. Is that is that solvable maybe with volunteers, or is that not something that a volunteer would be able to do or would be put into that position?
Personally, I think that we can solve a big portion of the telephone issue with at least getting the phones answered within the 3 ring. by having more volunteers assigned to different areas and have less voicemails and make it more personable. I honestly think that we can solve it. We just need more volunteers.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a lot of responsibility to answer and direct telephone calls. But maybe there's some veterans out there
Absolutely.
that can do that. We're out of time for this segment. Can you stick around and maybe talk some more about National Volunteer Month?
Sure.
Thank you. When we come back, Kathy will talk more about National Volunteer Month. The Florida Veterans Foundation team is one of the hardest working veteran advocate teams in the state of Florida and was authorized to establish a direct support organization to provide assistance, funding, and support for Florida Department of Veterans Affairs in carrying out its mission by the Florida legislature. Here's a little bit more of what they do for veterans.
Well, the Florida Veterans Foundation is really the strongest asset we've got to help veterans in the state of Florida. The good thing about it is we can give up to about $1,200 at this point in time, but it's for veterans. It's in emergency situations, and if they can qualify, like I said, they got access to us online on FloridaVeteransFoundation.org. You can find the application right there. If they qualify for this, and check the eligibility, but we're there to help them with rent payments, utilities, things of that nature. Something that, if not for some problem that came to mind that prevented them from making their house payment or utility bill or something like that, we can step right in and help them with that. What makes it quick and easy is you've got to fill out all the documentation, bring in all the documentation, fill out the application correctly, in detail, and anything else, add something to explain the situation or whatever. The more information, the better off we are, and the faster we can make a decision on it. Well, I've had veterans in our community that have sent requests in to Major Haynes, actually was the chairman at that time, and got assistance within 24 hours. They actually overnighted a check to this lady to help her out of a serious situation. So there's been other instances where we've had to call back and forth, ask for documentation, extra paperwork, and things like that. That's the only thing that takes a little time, and that stretches our time out. We want to help the veterans as fast as we can, as best as we can. But a lot of times, if we don't get all the information quickly, then that's the only thing that prevents us from following through and getting that 24-hour or 48-hour return. So that's one of the main things we've got. There's a lot of organizations within the counties that'll help to a certain effect, maybe some housing, maybe some utility stuff, but there's a gap. A lot of times, like you go to a lot of organizations, you may have to wait till they have their monthly meeting, or it could be 2 or 3 weeks off before you can get an answer. That's not the way the foundation works. The foundation, the good thing about that is the ability to react, and because we have a very small staff, like I said, over 95% of all donations goes to veterans. So we've got a small staff, and it's not very highly paid, but they're very passionate about what they do. And they're all veterans. They jump in and they help out wherever they can. Of course, Molly's the wife of a veteran, so I guess that counts too. But it's just a great organization. Their heart's in the right place. The only problem is it was never funded. So one of the big issues is we've got to, we don't just help veterans, we try to get the funding to help veterans. So we've got like a dual purpose there. And that's it takes a lot of work. And these district directors are all volunteers. So they do it on their own time. Some of them are still working, some of them are retired. But I think the really good thing that has advanced the foundation is that we've got a great working relationship with the Florida Department of Veteran Affairs, of which we're under, and also the County Veteran Service Officer Association. These guys are where the rubber meets a road. They're out there, they're on the front line, they talk to veterans every day, they assist veterans with their VA claims, they walk them through the process, they help them with their paperwork, and help them get their benefits. So having that relationship with these guys and helping veterans is just fantastic. I think Florida is probably the most veteran-friendly state because of what we all work together. Last year, I think it was last calendar year, we assisted veterans in 39 of the 67 counties. Well, that's great, but there's 20 some other counties that still need, I'm sure we got veterans in those other 27 counties that need assistance. So we're going to try to expand and get with the other 27 counties, make sure they're aware of us and make sure that we're there for them also. And they need to take advantage of what we can do for them and how we can help them.
Welcome back to today's Veteran. I'm your host, Tim Kirkhart. April is National Volunteer Month in the United States. We're back in the studio with Kathy Williams, who is the Chief of Voluntary Services at James A. Haley Veterans Hospital in Tampa. Thanks for being with us. We were talking in the earlier segment about National Volunteer Month. What does that mean to the regular person? Is it just the emphasis, the highlight for this month for you and your people?
Well, it's April is a month that we focus on the veteran, on the volunteers, and thank them for what they have given back to our veterans at Haley. We have a couple different programs set up specifically for the volunteers to recognize them. Of course, we do a award ceremony and luncheon, and we do a special breakfast for them one day, and just kind of give back to them for all of their efforts and time shared.
So I want to be a volunteer. Go over, if you could, maybe again, what's the process for becoming a volunteer?
The main thing is to call us. Use the telephone number that's listed and give us a call, and we'll get you set up with a volunteer specialist. We'll do an interview, we'll find out what your skills are, we'll do the TB time test, your fingerprinting, your background, your orientation, and we'll get you started. We love to have veterans to serve other veterans, but we take youth volunteer in the summer, so anyone age 14 in high school that need to get their 100 hours for their college scholarships. And we do have a big youth program where we take 80 youth every summer. So, just give us a call. It really does start with the phone call, and it's a pretty easy process after that.
James A. Haley VA Medical Center. Where does a volunteer park?
In the parking garage.
And then rides the tram in.
And then rides the tram in. So you can valet as a visitor. We have 2 valet points at this time, in the front of the hospital or in the back in our new polytrauma SCI center. You can park back there and valet if you don't feel comfortable. A lot of people don't feel comfortable with others driving their cars, so we encourage everyone to park in the parking garage, and they can.
Are the volunteers, are the valet people volunteers?
No, they're not. Ours are actually paid valets.
Okay. Are there currently any specific volunteer positions that you're looking for?
We do have a couple right now, and again, it fluctuates depending on the need. We have some volunteers that have retired and or passed away, and we have new volunteers coming in. I would say right now, whole health. It's a very new program, and we're looking for coaches. They're looking for specifically yoga instructors, Tai Chi instructors, and people that can do stuff in the community with the program. We're also looking for tram drivers. We're looking for people in the eye clinic to escort the patients back and forth to their appointments, some of the visually impaired veterans that may not have a caregiver with them. It's very uncomfortable if they, and you get to know that veteran and can chat with them.
Right. Tell me benefits, any benefits I might have from being a volunteer.
Well, you get the opportunity to, since you're a veteran, serve your fellow veterans. You know, it's very comfortable. It's to strike up that conversation and the camaraderie that you had. It's very easy to pick right back up because you know you always got the veterans that want to talk about their stories.
War stories, I call
absolutely.
them. Yeah. Is there anything going on special for Volunteer Month?
Well, actually, we have we're sponsoring. James A. Haley is one of the main sponsors for our National Advisory Committee, which is a large conference in Tampa at the Downtown Hilton in April. So that's going on in conjunction with Volunteer Month, which is kind of a, you know, coincided together this year. So we have a lot going on.
I keep going back to the trams.
Mm-hmm.
Do they run when it's raining and
Yes,
cold
they
and
do.
all that?
They run in the rain. They run from 6:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning until 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. In addition to people who want to volunteer, do you accept donations?
Absolutely. A lot of people don't realize that the VA functions on donations. I mean, we have appropriated dollars for staff, for, you know, salaries, but a lot of the stuff that is given directly to the veteran patient is done through donations, like toiletries, clothing. We only accept new clothing, shoes, water shoes for the shower. Unfortunately, we still have parts of Haley that are in the construction process, and we're building a new bed tower, and so we have some communal, you know, showers so people feel more comfortable with shower shoes.
I remember talking to Mr. Battle, and the tower, I know, is one of his special projects, so that's going. What kind of, do you get donations from companies?
We do. We call them partnerships. And I really need to do a shout out to the Home Depot here in Lakeland. Several of them, both on 98 and Lake Wales. They came through when I first came into voluntary service and wrote a grant and did a beautification project in our spinal cord and polytrauma area. And they put new plants and bedding, and the volunteers came in one day and tore out the old and put in the new, and it's beautiful out there for the patients that are stuck in bed or in their rehab program. They can look out the window and they have something really nice to look at.
So if somebody wanted to donate certain things, how does that work? Do they call or find out what's needed, or just give whatever they want, or how does that work?
Well, we do have the ability to take the phone calls. They can check our website. We do have a gift and donation list up on our website that lists all of the, you know, if it was a cash donation, where they want it to go, where the donor intends it to, you know, if someone passes away and they want to do a memorial to that veteran, they can make a donation in their name. to go specifically to wherever they want it, whether it's a new polytrauma patient, to a hospice program, to our long-term care facility, to the Fisher House. We have about 76 general post funds that money can go into to purchase whatever the VA can't buy for the patients.
We're talking about James Haley. We're in Polk County. What's going on in Polk County?
We're very excited about Polk County, actually, with our CBOC. We are in the process of looking at the areas to put more volunteers to see if there's a tram driver that's needed out in that area if the veterans can't make it to the entrance. And I know they're limited on space out there, and we're looking at putting a volunteer at the kiosks to help people with check-in to see if that will decrease the wait times. And technology sometimes is scary for some of the other generations. So that volunteer standing there greeting them, saying, "Hi, can I help you with your appointment?"
Kathy, we're about out of time, maybe 30 seconds. Is there anything that you would want to put out to our audience in that final 30 seconds?
If you want to volunteer, give me a call. We definitely can use nice smiling faces.
Well, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me today. It was a pleasure to be here.
For more information on National Volunteer Month, you can call the James A. Haley Veterans Hospital at 813-972-2000, extension 7533, or you can check them out on the web at www.tampa.va.gov. That's going to do it for this edition of Today's Veteran. I want to thank our guest today, Kathy Williams, but most of all, I want to thank you for joining us. Remember, for help and information regarding claims, benefits, and services available to veterans and their families, call the Polk County Veterans Service Office at 863-534-5220 or log on to the Polk County website at polk-county.net. I'm your host, Tim Kirkhart, and we will see you next month.